Hello and welcome to the dynamic navigation tutorial. To start, I'm going to show you how to set up a grid for this scene right here, and we're going to kind of do it the quick way first, and then I'm going to show you how to do things properly to save as much memory as possible and to make sure the navigation is the best it can be. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and get started here and create a empty object. Now I'm going to go component, and I'm going to add the grid script to this empty object. Alright, so now we can see that there's this white square around our object. And that is the size of the grid. So we're going to make this a little smaller. But I'm going to show you right now, the default numbers probably aren't going to work for this map. But we're going to try it anyway. So the key is you got to put your grid over top of your entire map. So let's go ahead and try and create this grid here. So if you want to create a grid, just simply click Create Grid Now, and it just created it already. So now, if we want to see, we can go Show Non-Walkable, and now we can see this obviously isn't working. We have a lot of non-walkable areas that are kind of messy looking, and really the grid is too low of resolution for this size of map. So we're going to go Destroy Grid. And I'm going to take a few guesses here. I'm going to guess that the cube size should be 0.5, and the capsule size needs to generally be under what the cube size is, so we're going to go 0.45 for capsule size. And then step height we'll leave at 0.3. Slope height we're going to probably bring to 0.6. And let's give this another try. Oh, and it looks like it's too small now, so we got to increase the size. Alright, now let's give this a try. It looks like, for the most part, it may have worked. Yeah, it's looking like the connections are going all the way up these stairs. Stairs are the most difficult thing here. You sometimes have to add a flat collider to the stairs because the grid can see a stair as a obstacle generally. But it looks like this actually might work, this whole grid. Now you'll notice that this area underneath here has no grid points at all. That's because there's only 2 layers that I told it to do, and if I wanted this area to be walkable, like if I wanted AIs to walk underneath this, then I would have to make this 3 layers. Or there are other options here. We can tag these as the non-walkable layer, so that way it won't put a walkable area on top of here. So let's go ahead and give the AI a target and see if he can make it to it. So let's just create a cube just to represent our target. So here's our cube, and now what we need to do for a target to work, we need to go Component, Dynamic Navigation, and Grid Position. Grid Position needs to be added to any object that is either a target or the AI himself. Basically what grid position does is it finds out where that object is located on the grid through algorithms. Okay, so what we need to do first is we need to assign the grid to this object. And we did not name it, which I should have. It's game object. Let's do that right now. Let's call it grid. Alright, so the grid is now assigned to this. Now here's something really important right here. You see something called axis height. Now this is the height that the axis is above the ground on your object. Now you can see that the axis isn't actually located on the ground, and you need the axis to be as accurate as possible because that will affect the algorithms in their attempt to find where you are on the grid. So I would say that 1.5 is probably a bit too high unless we were to have the cube right here. I'm going to quickly show you the easiest way to figure this out. What you can do is you can look at the Y right here, and you remember what the Y is, 54.31. So now we're going to bring this down to about ground level, 53.17. So I'm going to say it's around 0.5 or 0.6. So let's drag that down to 0.6. That's probably good enough. It doesn't need to be that close, but it's better that it's at least an estimation. So now we're just going to put this all the way over here, and we're going to see if the AI can find it. What we need to do now is we need to assign the grid to the AI, so he knows what grid he's going to use. You can have multiple grids in your scene, and you can have the AI assigned to any grid you want. This is actually really handy for if you have different size AIs, like if you had a dinosaur opposed to a person, you'd want to give the dinosaur a different grid at a larger cube size. But we'll go over that later. Okay, so now that we've assigned the grid, we're going to go to the simple move AI move script, and we're going to give him the target, and that's the cube. I should have named that too, but I didn't. And I think we should be good here. Select go to target, and let's see if it worked. Let's try. And there he goes. Found a path just like that. He's racing. Alright, now I'm going to talk about how to properly optimize your scene to get the best results possible. Now I have the grid selected right here, and you will see that there is an ignore collision layer, a non-walkable collision layer, and a dynamic obstacle collision layer. These all have different uses, but what I want to do is I want to make it so every couch, every object that you don't need the AI to walk on, we're going to assign this to the non-walkable collision layer. And that the default is 14. You can change it to whatever you want, but we're just going to use that now. So now I'm going to go add layer, and in 14 I'm going to just call it no walk, and then assign every object to the no walk. And I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so I have just assigned every object that I don't want the AI to walk on as non-walkable. So let's take a look at what the previous grid looked like. So as you can see, this stuff we don't want. We don't want the AI walking on the desks or the table, as you can see. Okay, so now we're going to create a brand new grid. And as you can see, no walkable areas on the tables or desks. Except for here, it looks like I missed something here. But anyways, so now what I think we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to make it so that staircases are ensured to work all the time. So as you can see, it's still worked out for this. Staircases, for the most part, do work, but sometimes they're too steep or the stairs are too large and lopsided. So when that happens, this is the best approach. So you can go create a cube. We're going to bring it over here. And we're basically going to make a ramp on the stairs. This will just help ensure that the stairs will be fully walkable. Because these wedges, these stairs can be seen as obstacles sometimes. So we want to make sure that doesn't happen. So I'm going to go ahead and place these ramps just like this over all the stairs. Well, that concludes the first part of the tutorial. Next I will talk about some more advanced features. Alright, in this section I'm going to be covering some more advanced stuff, including how to set up the navigation for fantasy AI, but that will come after. But right now I'm just going to show you quickly how to set it up with the terrain. It's almost the exact same as indoor, like everything's treated the same. So really what we want is we don't want AIs to try and go up or down cliffs unless you want that. But basically what that is controlled by is slope height. So that's the max right here. It would be 1.8 meters before the node will decide that the node next to it is too steep or too high above it or too low. So this is actually pretty good for a cube size of 1.75, 1.8, 1.7 is generally a pretty good like steepness height to keep it at. So let's just try this right now. I'm going to create the grid, and I didn't create it for the entire map just because like I want everything to run faster here. But for the record, this grid is very capable of covering this entire map in high resolution. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. So this AI right here is already told to go to this cube target right here, so let's just give it a try. It'll take a little bit here because it's a big map. And there we go, he found a way. So let's just stop that right now. And right now, what I'm going to go over is navigation portals. So let's just turn off the debug here, and I'm going to type in portal here. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to bring out the navigation portal, which is this little purple cylinder here. And right away, I'm going to want to assign the grid. And you'll notice this purple line right here. Now what I'm about to do with this portal is I'm going to make it so that the AI will jump off this cliff instead of going all the way around here. Really what these navigation portals do is you can choose to connect any two nodes that you want on the map. So if I wanted to, I could connect a node here to a node all the way across the map, but of course that wouldn't make any sense because the AI, if he wanted to get across the map, he'd go here expecting to appear there. But anyways, this works well for anything like ladders or elevators, or even areas that are too tight for the grid to get through. So you can use it on anything, basically anything you want. It's very useful. So in this case, we're going to use it so that he will jump off of here instead of going around here. So I'm going to copy this portal right here, and now we have two, and we're going to bring this one down here, and see it made a connection with the nodes down here. So now what we want to do is I'm actually going to name this 2, and now I'm going to assign the other one to it. So I'm going to type in portal. Oh, looks like there's a few portals already. Oh, that's the right one right there. And now I'm going to assign the other one. So they need to be assigned to each other. And it looks like that's the correct one right there. So now the connection has already been made. Oh yeah, and one more thing you need to know is each portal, there's an option for portal open. And one of these needs to be open for anything to happen here. And we want the top one to be open because we want him to jump off. If we open the bottom one, he's going to try and get up, and that just won't make any sense unless he can jump 20 feet. But in this case, he can't. So let's give this a try and see if it worked. Alright, now I'm going to talk about dynamic obstacles, one of the really cool features of this. Alright, so I have a rock here, and we're going to make this a completely dynamic obstacle. So simply all you do is go to dynamic navigation and assign the dynamic obstacle script to it. And then after that, all you do is assign the grid. And it should be ready to go here. All I need to do is turn on the debug for the grid so I can see it. And remove this object, and there we go. That is a dynamic obstacle. Alright, now there is just one more thing that I want to go over. I'm going to show for the people who have Fantasy AI how to set up your Fantasy AI character to use this navigation. As you can tell here, I already set up a little grid here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to grab a Fantasy AI character. I've already imported Fantasy AI into here, and I'm just going to grab an easy skeleton right here. And this is just the normal one that comes fully rigged with the package. And I'm going to go to his inspector, and I'm going to remove off of him the nav mesh target as well as the navigation script. Remove component. Now, what needs to happen here is I need to add the grid position, and I need to add the navigator script. Now, he's still not ready to go here. What you need to assign now is the Fantasy AI plugin. That is a script that you need to download off of the help page in the forums. There is a link in the README when you download this package. So the link is in the README, and in the help forums you will find the download for Fantasy Plugin Play is what it's called. And what this does is it analyzes what's happening with the Fantasy AI, and it assigns the current targets and the current enemies to the navigator script accordingly. So now all that's left is assign the grid to his grid position script and assign the grid to his navigator script. And there we go. Let's make him go to that cube target right there. So I'm going to bring him up here so he has to travel a little ways. And we're going to select go to target down here, and then we're going to assign his target cube, and we should be ready to go. He should pathfind to it. Let's try it. And there we go. His path debug isn't on, but he found a route. And that concludes the tutorials for dynamic navigation. Thank you very much.